Hi and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with building our sword model. At the moment we've just built a very low res sort of game model. As you can see, I've got it open in Maya. We've modded it very low. We probably do it even lower, but we're going to keep it as a sort of very gamey sort of asset. So now all we need to do is UV it. So I'm going to start with the blade again. I'm just going to select everything. And I'm just going to go to modify, freeze transformations, modify, and edit, delete all by type history. No, just delete by type history, sorry. So now when we go to our attribute editor, we have no history on it, and we should have no transforms. So now we're ready to UV. So I'm just going to Control 1 to isolate this. You can see we've got a pretty low res model. It's not super amazing, but it's just enough for what we need. So first of all, I'm going to go to my UVs, open my UV editor. And because we made this from a cube, it'll already have its UVs on it. These UVs may not be good enough for what we need. So what I'm going to do, as I did on the other ones, I'm going to select it. I'm going to go UV, delete UVs. Select my sword, go UV and camera based. So I want to get rid of those UVs and I want to make my own seams, but I can't do that with those. I can, but it's just easier to do it this way. But you can't make seams with no UVs, so I just use the camera based. So now if I go to my edge mode, kind of want to figure out where I want to put these edges. So I can put them up here where there's going to be dirt, but it's obviously easier to paint on a surface like this where it's just straight over. As we're projecting, this should be fine. So I'm actually going to go for let me think. So I'm going to go for this edge, that edge. And I'm going to unwrap it so this whole bit folds over. And this might be different depending on how high res you decided to model yours. Actually, just noticed something very weird in the model. So let's hide our UVs and just have a look at this. What's going on here? Shading frame. Probably just looks a little bit weird because it's kind of bent. So let's actually freeze transformations, edit, delete by type history again. So now we can go back to our UV editor. Let's just continue selecting those edges. Cool, so I've selected all the edges, but I have left. Hold on a sec. Why is that? Oh no, I need to make sure that I don't select this bottom one. So I want to make this edge here all the way around. Possibly select this edge. Select that edge, it's more of an angle. Let's go to object mode. Sorry, I've messed this up. Let's go to our object, isolate that and go back to our edges. Let's double select that, sorry. And do that edge. that edge and this edge. So now if we go, I've got my tool settings over here, but yours might be on your UV editor already. Or UV toolkit, sorry. So I'm just going to cut and sew and use cut. Get to my UV shell, select it, modify and unfold. So now we can see we've got our blade all folded out, and we can select our checkerboard here and just press F to center on it, and we can see how that's looking. That looks pretty good. Slight angle here. So I'm just going to place it at the bottom. Try to straighten this as possible. And what's going on here? So we've got some funky stuff going on here. So I'm just going to select this edge, cut, and go to my UV shell, modify, and unfold. You can see how that's fixed that. Just need to straighten this out now again. And I'm going to make sure that my blade's always going from left to right. I always like to sort of keep any sort of flow objects going left to right. Other people may do it top to bottom, but I kind of like doing it that way. So I've downloaded the sword blade. If we have a look around, just double check there's not anything funny going on them. Just minimize this, quite difficult with one screen. So we can see all the squares are nice. And we're going to keep it all within one UV tile. So we've done our blade. And what's happened here? I might have moved it by accident. How did that happen? So I'm just going to pull this down, make sure it's back on top. Just going to freeze those transforms. Let's go to my bracket. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to delete, because this is a mess. There's no point even looking at this. It's just disgusting. So I'm just going to go UV, delete UVs. Then I'm just going to go UV, camera based. So now I can select where I want to put my seams. Let's just turn the checkerboard off for now. So we don't really see much in here. In the grand scheme of things, we could probably delete all this, but let's not worry too much about that. So select this edge, and I'm going to sort of peel this all the way around. Select all these edges. Just going to select all these inside edges and those ones. And I know, like, a lot of people just use the automatic UV. I don't like it. I think when you're doing automatic UVs, it's just a mess. And when you're doing things in production and working for a VFX house, if you did things with automatic UVs, they'd be pretty annoyed. You don't really ever do it anyway, so I'm just going to cut. So hopefully, if I can UV shell, this should completely unfold, and it has, in a way that I kind of don't want it to, or has it? So I probably want to add cut there. And cut here. Hopefully that should modify it, unfold. It's not. Where is that edge? Why is that pulling that down like that? So let's actually select that, cut the whole thing. See what it looks like if we just remove that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut those off. Why is that like so? Let's cut that. Okay, so that's straight. Let's do the same to that. Let's just roughly place that there. G and unfold on that. Just roughly place that. And G to repeat command. And just double check that's in the correct place. Hopefully. Yeah. So I'm actually going to select these and go to orient shells so they're perfectly upright. And I'm also going to select this part and I'm going to go to transform. And I'm going to, where is it? Get textile density. And I'm going to set them so they're both the same. So let's see. So what was causing the problem was this angle here. So obviously it can't quite get that correctly, and if that was to go perfectly upright, this UV would be overlapping. So what we can do is just roughly place it, and because we're going to be projecting it anyway, so don't worry too much. So that's where our problem is there, is sort of we can't get that. Or we can try and sort of get it in there, but you might want to retake, you might not be just texturing, you can just paint over it if you want. So I'm just going to UV scale, I'm just going to scale this down. I'm just going to do the same for this. So edge. Go to cut. UV. Modify. Unfold. I'm just going to make sure it's the right way up. And it's not, so I can just rotate it with the rotate tools here. I'm just going to orientate it so it's straight. I'm just going to select all these and go modify, unfold, orient. Let's just pull this over to here and make sure we got the right way up. Yeah, that's the right way. You can see that's actually upside down, so Now that's the right way up. And that one's on its side. And that's the correct way up. So I'm just going to select that, the one that I scaled down, and I'm just going to get textile density, select all these, set. So now they're all the same size. Cool, so I'm just going to put these with that. And we've pretty much done that one now, so we've UV'd that nicely. Let's go to object mode and press 1. Let's select our sword, and I'm going to use my textile density from the sword because it's got the most out of it, out of the width. Select my UV shells, set, and I can just lay out these and hopefully, or in fact, let's keep them all together. So I'll do my own sort of positioning because then I can sort of understand what bit goes with where. Cool. So we've done that. And now let's go on to our next one. In fact, what we can do now, we've UV'd that. You can unhide that, we can actually duplicate it, translate in the X, and put -1, so it flips it. Now we can sort of align this. We can sort of see it's not the same. Well, it is the same, it's just a bit wonky. So let's just try and get the best lineup we can. That's pretty good. Cool. Let's go back to our UV. And now if we select our UV shells, bring it up. Oh, it didn't duplicate. So we can control, luckily we can just control D that and press 0 and 1 and that brings it back. That's where I duplicated that, but we bring it out. Why can't I see both of those UVs? Oh, there we are. So just going to bring this down. So now we've duplicated that and we've got both those UV'd now. I am seeing UVs. I think I did something's kind of funny here. Okay. Cool. So that's actually done now. So let's do the same again for this. So that's UV, delete UVs, then go UV camera based. I'm just going to isolate that. And this time I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to select this edge. I'm also going to go around here as well. Don't select the edge ring. Make sure you get the edge loop. Go to UV toolkit and cut. So I'm just going to get modify, unfold. Whoops, we seem to have missed an edge. Let's undo that. Let's move that out of the way. Oh yeah, there we go. So let's modify a fold. So we've got those edges. Press G again on that. We've forgotten this edge here, so we'll just cut. Modify and unfold. Forgot that edge as well. This one's not going so well. Modify, unfold. Now we've got it nice and square. Let's just modify and unfold on that. Do the same on that. Then we can select both these and just orientate the shells. And they're both the right way up. So we can just push that there. And now we just set the textile density to both of these. Yeah, we've set. Cool. So let's just object mode that. Press Control 1 to unhide everything. So we can just get rid of that for now. And we go to our channel editor and bring back our scan. And let's duplicate that again. Translate it in the X. And -1 in the X. And now let's try and get this nicely aligned. So they both seem to be fairly tilted on this side. So just very slight. Like you might have to. So imagine these brackets aren't perfectly straight. Pull this so they're apart. Cool. So that's now goes back to our UV editor. And if we select our UV shells, just move those along. So now if we just go to our object mode, select everything, we can see our UVs. It's very suspect. I think we're let's organize these. got these mixed up somehow. So if you select all of these, hopefully. Let's just tidy these up. Cool, so we've now done these brackets. We've organised it in a way that sort of fits in. So now our next step is to do this hilt. If we press 1, we can see it's kind of, it's a bit crazy. So we're going to go straight to delete the UVs. And we can just put it in a position and just do UV camera based. And this one's going to be quite simple to do, so I'm just going to go to my edge. I'm just going to double click on all these outer edges and these inner edges, the center pieces. I go to my UV toolkit and I'm going to go cut. So now if I go to my UV shell, modify, unfold, that will unfold nicely. Then I could just do the same for this. That's annoyingly rotated it. Just double check that's the right way up. And it's not. So they're both the right way up. Cool. And we'll just orientate that one. So it's nice and straight. Then we'll select both and set our texel density. And we'll just put that there for now. And that's that done. That was pretty quick to do. So if we select everything, sort of organize it around. Now we've just got our handle to do. And luckily this is already a cylinder. So all we have to do is select it and go modify and unfold, because the cylinder already keeps the UVs. Perfect. No, it doesn't, because we've got those bits there. Let's UV and delete UVs again, then just do a camera based. I'm just going to select the edges, select one of the bottom ones, and go cut. And then, oh, sorry, go to my UV shell, modify, and unfold. And now that's unwrapped it nicely, so I'm just going to orientate it, rotate it around, and then I'm going to set my texel density. You can see that's nicely UV'd now. So if we select all these, just make sure we've not got any overlapping. And we should have plenty of UV space, so don't worry about that. So let's do our final piece. And as before, we'll just delete our UVs. Select it, do a quick camera based one so we can make our edges, and what we want to do is select that edge, this bottom one, and cut. So now we can go to our UV shell, modify, unfold. Then do the same for this, G. And we need to add another cut up here. Hopefully that should remove some of this curve. What we can do when you've got stuff that's kind of curved, and you kind of need it, with the protections it doesn't matter so much, but we can try and go to modify and straighten shell. Modify and straighten UVs. So let's try that in just going to modify and optimize. In fact, let's just go straight to an unfold again, because I think we've broken that. So what I can do, I can just go to my edge, hold R, on this edge, sorry, hold R till it's straight, edit, pin selection, go to my UV and go modify, unfold, and that'll unfold around that sort of flat edge. So now everything's flat, but it's kind of a bit weird. So I'm going to edit, unpin all, then I go edit, pin selection, UV shell, modify, unfold. So now hopefully that should relax that. You can see now it's kind of made everything straight. Edit, unpin, then we can go modify, and hopefully optimize should bring it out a bit better. So now we've got that nice and straight. We can select both of these and set our texel densities. So make sure they're all in the same tile. And let's just select our object, press Ctrl 1. Let's select everything. What is this? Oh, it's the bolt. We've got the, I almost thought we were done, but we've actually got the bolts to do as well. So that's the handle done. Our last thing is to do the bolts. So these should be fairly easy, because they're actually partially already done for us. So we can just go to UV shell, modify, unfold, orientate shell, and the same with this, modify, unfold, and then we can just double check it's the right way up. And then I'm just going to select them both, set my texel density so they're both the same. And I'm just going to Control 1, turn my UV editor off, and bring back my scan. So now I can Control D and duplicate these. Now I don't have to UV it every time. Probably should have just placed them, then rotated them. So now I've put it all at a funny axis. In fact, what I can do is just set my tool settings to world, then it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to get all these bolts in place. Control D. Then minus X in -1 in the X. Sorry. Obviously these bolts are a little bit different. They're actually the nuts, not the actual bolt. So they do have the bolt coming through, but I'm not going to worry about that. So just Control D. Ooh. Control D. They do actually look a little bit bigger, so I'm going to scale them as well. So just 2 more bolts to do. So I'm just going through this quite fast now. So it's just mostly duplicating stuff. So now we've done those. Let's turn it off and make sure we've not got any floating bolts. If you have, just scale it, bring it back. So I'm going to select all these bolts. I'm going to freeze and transforms and edit and delete by type history. So now they're all zeroed out and free to go. And go back to my UV editor. Select my UV shells. In fact, what I'll do first is select all my bolts. UV shell, modify, unfold. Then I'll just go to my orient shells. Then what I'm going to do is just go to layout. It's now nicely packed up. So I'm going to drag these up here. I'm just going to select all of my geometry so I can see where it all is. And place all my metal parts in the middle. And let's just minimize that. And we're done. So we've now successfully UV'd this sort of prop sword or sort of game asset. And what we can do is just tidy up some of this. So we don't need these all separate. We can actually just go mesh, combine, edit, delete by type history. We can delete all these shape nodes. Bolts underscore geo. And let's merge all these brackets because they don't need to be. It's up to you. If you want to keep them separate, you can. Sometimes it's easier just to keep them all as one, so there's less sort of geo floating around your scene. And it means you don't have to name as much as well. It just keeps everything quite a bit simpler. So brackets, bolts, sword handled tip. I will keep that separate because that's metal. And that sort of string, and the hilt's metal, and the blade's metal. So I'm kind of separating these all up to like in texture objects. So this will obviously have a metal shader, and this will have a metal shader, and all of this have a metal shader, but this probably won't. So let's just select all of this. So actually I have just realized something with the blade, because I completely forgot that we actually, if we go back to our scan, let's turn our wireframe shaded off. Let's just hide our remesh. So I completely forgot that we've got to fix this, and you can do this multiple ways. I'm going to do this the easiest way. I'm just going to fix it in Photoshop, and I've just realized if I go to my UV editor, I've kind of not UV'd it in a way that might oh, let's not select that. So if I go to close that, unhide my sword. So I've actually kind of done this. That's not a great way for that, because I've made my seam, because I'm just going to take this into Photoshop and fix it. You can take it into Substance, Mario, or whatever, and you can still get really good results. But I'm going to do this so on a sort of basis that you don't have Substance or Mari, and you just have Photoshop or even Paint. You can fix this in Microsoft Paint. But problem is that I've made my seam across the top here, which is fine. But if we're going to sort of like try and paint this, it's going to be difficult to hide this seam. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to re-UV this. Just going to isolate it. Just going to turn that grid off. And instead of having the seam on the edge, I'm going to have the seam running down the entire edge blade. So then it unwraps like that. So I'm just going to actually UV, delete UVs, select it again, and go, I've got show selection highlighting off. Go UV camera based. I'm going to select the edges. And I'm going to double click on this edge. And that's gone up to that corner, which is fine. Because we don't want to have a seam across here. Because it's just easier to fix it this way. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to unwrap this completely from which edge do I want? So it would actually be better because there's, I deselect those, because there's a curve on this edge. It's actually going to be better for me to cut it here. So when it unfolds across this flatter edge. And because we don't really need to fix anything there, so let's go to our tool settings. Oh, sorry, UV toolkit. And cut. So let's select our UV show and select that, modify and unfold. Let's turn our grid back on. And we can just orientate our shells. It's gone the wrong way, so we'll just go to our transform and rotate. And let's just double check we've got this the right way up. So, because it's going to be upside down on one side, you can't avoid that. But I'm going to make sure this is the right way up on this side. And now I'm just going to go to my text density and set. So that's the same texel density. And now what basically it just means that now when I reproject my textures, I don't have to worry about any seams here because I'm only fixing this top part here. The rest I'm just going to leave down as texture projections and maybe very small amounts of changes. But this way I can fix it in Photoshop really easy. So if I just select all of that and double check I'm not overlapping anything. Cool. So we can just get rid of that. And I think we're pretty much done. So our next step would be to then take this back into Agisoft and reproject it. Then we're pretty much finished. We can see what it looks like back in Maya. Give it a little sort of a quick rough render. And yeah, let's see what it looks like. So if you've enjoyed that tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.